printing on 2 pieces. I have to make a skirt and a jacket. And the reason I'm making this outfit is I have a concert to go to, and I really didn't know if I was going to be able to because of work. So I'm starting this last minute. Typical. But either way, I have a concert to go to. The theme is pink. I don't own a lot of pink. I don't own anything acceptable in pink for the concert. And yeah, it was a struggle. So I just decided to make something. And I'm going to make something kind of simple. I'm going to make a simple pencil skirt, but I'm going to add some flair to it because I don't like pink a lot. I don't wear pink a lot. I think it looks good on me, but I just don't like the color. It's bright. It's not my favorite to look at. But because I'm wearing it, we're going to flare it up, do some edginess to it to make it not as pink when I look at it. It's still going to be bright pink. The fabric I bought is bright bubblegum latex pink. But we're also going to make a jacket, and I'm hoping that the jacket isn't as hard as I think it will be because I've never made a jacket, and I've never made a latex or leather-like jacket because that's the style I'm going to be going for. And I'm going to have a collar and zippers and all this stuff I've never done. So, I mean, realistically, let's just get started before I panic and not start. We're going to start with the garment pieces cut out because I already did the pattern video and cut the garment pieces out, which you can check out here. Now, we're going to start with pinning down the elastic. I did pre-measure the elastic to the tightest part of my waistband where I want the waistband to lay, and then cut the pieces to match the pieces of the pattern I cut. So when it comes to pinning this can be a little difficult because elastic is supposed to be something that keeps your waistline up, which means it's tighter than your actual waistline. So your waistband is cut a little smaller and you have to pin accordingly. So the best thing I can suggest is leaving your seam allowance lines and pinning the elastic waistband by folding over the fabric on top of itself with the waistband in between and securing it as tightly as possible. And this may require a few more pins than one may want, but the more pins the better in this situation. On video, I did just do the ends, and I'm going to go through and add more pins and more security. It's just a very tedious process that is hard to show on camera and do comfortably because my room is not set up for sewing. Before I show you what the pinned elastic band looks like, we're going to skip to the interface. I am putting a layer of interface at the bottom of my skirt. That way when I apply the grommets, that they will be a little more secured than just in the fabric. Interface is a thicker fabric that adds texture almost to fabrics that don't have it, where if you add snaps or anything they may slip. This is something I knew that I was going to need to use because my press from previous endeavors has shown me that the snaps and stuff do end up slipping. So I bought interface for this project. When it comes to the interface, I just cut a small slip the length of the garment that I'm choosing to put it on. And we're going to end up ironing it because it gets applied with a hot surface, and then I'm going to pin it as a hemline to kind of cover up that interface and make sure it stays within the skirt. Once that's done and we have both sides, elastic waistband and interface pinned, this is what it ends up looking like so far. Now is to finally start the sewing of the skirt. We're going to be starting with sewing the hem over the interface area. For this, we're just going to fold over our seam allowance onto the hem and sew a straight stitch. This is what it ends up looking like, and honestly, I'm very proud of myself for this stitch because I did not leave a lot of room for my seam allowance. Next is sewing the elastic, and for this, we're going to be pulling the fabric pretty tightly to keep that elastic as straight as possible because we do not want to lose it within the sewing. We want to make sure that it stays in place and that it actually is going to be ensured to be within that line and not pull loose. So I do a lot of ensuring stitches where I will sew into the waistband while sewing my stitches for securing the hemline of the top of the waistband. And then after sewing across, I will sew down to ensure that my waistband will not fall out of the sides if it is not perfectly sewn in and it does have some movement. This resists that chance that we will have a waistband come out, even in the wash. And this is what the waistband looks like when we're done. It scrunches up to the size of the elastic waistband versus the pattern waistband. And this is exactly kind of what we want. We want to make sure that stretch is there so that way when we go to put the garment on, it stretches into place, but then looks form-fitted on the body. The next thing we're going to sew is the sides of the skirt. I did not show pinning this because it is a simple seam allowance pin, just straight down the skirt. We're doing this because instead of sewing the two pattern pieces together, I will be sewing these edges to zippers because I'm making an alternative looking latex skirt and I want a phonetic edge versus a frayed raw edge, so I'm making a fine pressed edge to go to the zip. When done, this is what it looks like. It looks very similar to our hemline because it's kind of the same stitch, it's just vertical instead of horizontal. The next thing for the skirt we're going to do is line the grommets and put them in. I am super excited about this part. This is a design I've been thinking about forever. So we're just going to put the grommets where I think they should go. And we're going to kind of mark the inside with the tip of a marker. Now I'm probably going to adjust these because nothing ends up perfect when I record. Once lined up, this is what it looks like. Now when I did take it to the press, I did decide to move some of them just because of my OCD and I don't know, it wasn't perfect. So when it comes to pressing a grommet into the outfit or the garment, first we have to create a hole, and we do this with a hole punch. So I put a hole punch in and then we hole punch the area, and that will kind of cut out most of the fabric. It leaves a little bit so that way the grommet can secure to that. Then we put the grommet pieces into the press. We put the one side that points up on the bottom of the press, and then the side that is flat on the top of the press. I have done a walkthrough on my grommet, so I'm not going to go into it into much detail. And then once we are done putting the pressure of the press on, this is what it should look like. The interface secures it a little more, while without the interface, the grommets tend to slide. Now, with the grommets done, we're going to move on to the sides, which is going to be a zipper. And for this, we have to measure the zipper and mark it. And then once it's marked, we cut it, and this is what it looks like. I did make it a little shorter than the garment piece because it needs to be secured within the garment versus having an external beyond the garment. Then we pin it, and pinning it is a little difficult, but you know, we just gotta do it. When it comes to sewing it, I am doing a triple straight stitch to enforce that stitch and make sure that the zipper does not come off, because this is going to be holding my garment together and basically holding it on my body. And I am trying to do this as close to the edge of the garment as possible for the cleanest, crispest edge on the zipper. When done, this is what it looks like on both sides. And then with the other side pinned, this is how the zipper functions to both pieces. When it comes to sewing it, I am sewing the garments together zipper-wise. I am going on the back side instead of the front. It is a little harder for the latex to move on the machine, so it does get stuck a bit, but I did this to ensure that the zipper was as perfect and not sewing over it and closing it up or anything, just to make sure that I wasn't making any mistakes like I tend to. And then when done, this is what it looks like. I'm pretty proud of it. Okay, y'all, so this is the skirt. As we can see, I put the grommets in it. One zipper goes up, the other goes up, but this is closed at the bottom because I accidentally closed both sides. But this is the skirt. I'm really happy with it. It stretches enough, it's tight enough around the waist. It's, tight enough around all of the areas. I can walk, actually. And if I feel like it's too tight, I can loosen it just slightly and walk. And then I can tighten it again to keep everyone away and walk. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to see where the jacket goes, if we can get the jacket done in time. Honestly, the only thing I don't like is maybe the fact that the interface is like this. Maybe I would have cut squares, but that's just, I did strips because I had lack of knowing where I was placing them. And I know that you can just do squares, but I was really scared that they were also going to fall off. So I am super, super happy. And this is like the first step in making a really finalized product for Fitclusion. Okay, so now we're moving on to the jacket, and I've actually never made a jacket before. So here are the pieces, lining and latex pieces. We have one back, the two pieces for the front, and the two arms. And I almost forgot about the collar piece. The first step is pinning the lining to the latex, and I'm just gonna go around pinning it as securely as possible. I will go through and add more pins just for recording purposes. I did minimum. once pinned, this is what it truly looks like. And then when it comes to sewing, our bottom stitch is going to be pink and our top stitch is going to be black. And I am using a footed press that will hold down the fabric because I knew the latex was going to move and stick, and I needed to sew on the black side just so I could see security and making sure that the lining wasn't moving. And in order to do this, I needed to use my footed press. Now, I did not end up putting pockets on the final piece, something I do still intend to do, but for time's sake, I just didn't have the time. But I did mark them, and this is what it looks like when it's marked up, and I cut them. And this is what the garments look like when the lining is sewn to them. The back piece, the 2 front pieces, and the 2 arm pieces. Now comes the point where we are going to hem the sleeves. I never made sleeves or a jacket, so I don't really know what order to do this in, but all I know is I have 2 days left until this concert and I need to get this done. So we're hemming the sleeves and hemming the edges of the jacket. I do iron them because latex, I enjoy ironing it, but it also helps it stay down, and it also is something I suggest doing when doing hems is pressing down your hem. That way you just have a more secured, perfected line. Now, at this point in the night, my sewing machine just did not want to glide with the latex, so I started just doing a simple hand stitch, and within that caused a lot of time and tedious process that I'm going to learn what to do about that in between this project and the next time I work on this, because I will be adjusting this. I did do a larger gapping in my hand stitching just for time consumption. I probably would have done it a little smaller if I had the time, but I just really wanted to get this done. Once done hand sewing, this is what it looks like. It's not perfectly straight because my mother came in and I ended up having to restart the stitching, but I am pretty proud of my hand stitching. Now comes the time to add the zippers to the sides of the front panels, and we're going to do the same thing we did with the skirt. Cut it, pin it, and take it to the machine. When sewing the zipper, I am sewing it upside down or zipper facing down again, just to make it more convenient and make it more something I'm comfortable with and have control over. Once done sewing, I cut off the excess because I want that phonetic, fine, crisp edge I was telling you guys about, and also at the bottom, I did leave excess so that the zipper could be covered and sealed on the one side, and that way it won't fall out. And like I've said, I've never done it before, so it's not pretty. And this is what that bottom looks like. I know it's not perfect, but hey. And we're just going to straight stitch the zipper on with our hand needle and just hope for the best. And looking back, those stitches aren't perfect, but hey. done, I did end up just super gluing the zipper tabs just so I didn't have my zipper run down or go above, because this is around the neckline and I am adding a collar, but the collar didn't end up getting that low that I wanted to sew onto the zipper. To secure the super glue onto the tabs, I did cut the smallest pieces of little square fabric from the pink latex to just kind of go over it to make it look like a more finished look, even though this is literally a prototype at this point. This is not a finalized outfit. And then next we are going to sew on the back piece to the front panel, starting with the shoulders. And that is what it looks like when you bend it over. I'm actually pretty proud of how lined up I got my seam allowance lines and how straight it fits. And the next step is sewing the sides, but to be honest, I sewed the sides after doing the sleeves, which is why I don't have a finalized photo or video of it, because sleeves are something that were complicated for me and I was scared. So I did the sides last. But moving on to the sleeves, we have to sew our armpit arc and our shoulder arc into the right sections of the armholes on the sleeves. So we're going to be very careful when lining this up. It is a tight fabric. My armholes are probably a little smaller than they need to be, hence why it's a prototype again. And that means that it's not going to fit 100%. But we're going to do our best to make sure it fits. I did not record sewing it because at this point in the night it was really late, I was really flustered, and I just didn't have the capacity in my brain to just function anymore. So I'm just going to skip to the collar, which I laid out and measured, and then I grommeted. And once I grommeted it, with the interface of course, I ironed it, overlaid it on itself, folded it, and made it to the desired shape I kind of want it to be on, so when I sew it, and then this is kind of what it looks like when it's pinned. Of course, like I said before, it is not the whole length of the collar. That's the style I'm going for. And then sewing it, we are doing a triple reinforced straight stitch. I think I may have gone through it twice just to make sure both sides are secured, because this is not the proper way to sew a collar on, in my opinion. But we did it! So let's check out the finished products. Prototypes. Products, but prototypes. These are not finalized. Okay, y'all, so this is what the jacket looks like. It does zip. I didn't do the best job on my zipper, but it does work. See, it works. Doesn't look pretty when zipped, but we don't talk about that. Now, I will say, I want to sew this, because this is not sewn. I do think maybe it might be a little long. I like my collar. I like the studded collar. I do think that the sleeves are a little too tight here and maybe here, so they just need to be a little bigger all around, and that I definitely have time to add pockets or space to add pockets and space to add embellishment in the back, but I think we're definitely going to update this and redo the sleeves, maybe do grommets down here, just embellish it a bit after adding the sleeves and fixing some things. I do think that the skirt itself, maybe needs to be a little wider as well. I do have a split here on the zipper already because of my thighs, and I did notice when I did large strides that it was not staying. So that is a little concerning. So definitely a prototype outfit, definitely a fabric I did not think would be as tight on my body as it is, because I thought I was tiny and I could get away with it. I am not as tiny as I thought I was. So I think I'm going to make these in like a more simpler fabric and then come back to the pink latex and make the final garment. And we'll see how that goes. So it may be a bit until I get to the final transition of working on this again. But I definitely want to get that pattern 100% perfect before making it in this fabric again and embellishing. Because adding the grommets and having to redo the skirt, or adding the grommets and having to redo the jacket again, it's just a waste of grommets. And especially if I'm not going to wear the original garment. So I think that's what I'll do, is I'll do like a prototype in a different fabric that's a little simpler. And then I'll do a prototype in a fabric that is like a muslin kind of fabric that's I'll probably do the muslin first, actually, and then I'll do a fabric that is similar to this, but cheaper, and then I will do this fabric again. Because this fabric is just hard to work with, it's not the cheapest fabric, and it's not the most expensive, but it's not a fabric, like, in the sense of cheap that you can re-sew through. Like, it's a sew-through once fabric. You can't really make many mistakes in it. And that's what I mean by cheap fabric, in my opinion, because, like, if I can sew through it multiple times without someone noticing, that means I can make a lot of mistakes. And for me, cheap fabric in that sense is a good thing. While this is more, in my mindset, like, a fabric that's a higher level, or maybe I would call a more expensive fabric in my vocab, which is not even the correct vocab, okay? Cheap and expensive in my vocab doesn't mean price. And it doesn't even mean quality sometimes. It just means my skill level. But either way, I can't wait to see where this goes in the future. I can't wait to see what the next version of this looks like. I can't wait to see what the prototype in between it looks like. And I can't wait to see the embellishments. But it's going to be a couple projects before I can get there. Hopefully we will. If you enjoyed this video, definitely check out my other ones. Definitely keep updated on when I do the embellishment and come back to working on this. And maybe one day it will be on Fitclusion, because this is the goal for the jacket. And as far as like the pencil zipper skirt, I do want it on Fitclusion. Maybe not the grommets. Maybe that's just a me thing. But I do love this outfit, and I'm very proud of myself. So I hope you enjoyed it as well. Have an amazing day. Stay beautiful, stay positive, and don't let anyone stop you. Bye!
It's Shauna.